And welcome into the Week 7 Countdown Show with the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and Frankie Santiago, breaking down the first half of this Bipocalypse slate here. Not to mention all of the slew of injuries that make it even harder, because it seems like none of the injured players are the players on buys. So, hooray. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the show, though, let's go over our beer of the week. Vitaly, do you wish to show off the bottle that you procured for us?
So I went with it not only because of the stubby bottle, but I've had it before. It's a Switchback Ale. It's a very fancy Bud Light is the way I like to call it.
Fancy Bud Light, huh?
Because it definitely has that light beer, easy to drinkness. But it's a little
I
bit
don't get
better.
fancy Bud Light from that at all.
This is not fancy Bud Light at all. This is
Mm.
an unfiltered bottle conditioned ale.
Yeah, I don't.
Just for people who like light beers and drink mostly Bud Light and that, it's like this is the next step up the run. Where
This is like
you're not.
This is very not light beer.
yes.
That's
This
how it
beer-
tastes to me.
This beer is quite cloudy, opaque even.
I'm not talking about color. I'm talking about taste. Where there's IPAs and there's all the other stuff. But anyways, we've got enough to talk about. It tastes like I said. That's the next step.
It is
up.
a good beer. I don't dislike the beer. I just find your labeling of it curious.
Yes.
All right. Well, enough rambling on about the beer. I'm going to dive into the news because we've got a fair bit of it to go through, and then we'll attack this slate here. So, feel free to interject if you hear something that you think merits talking about. Otherwise, I'll throw it to you guys if I'm, looking at something that's kind of weird. But Sony Michel shoulder did not practice today. Derek Carr was a full practice with his finger. Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards were both limited during practice. Ruggs with a knee, Brian Edwards with a hamstring, and Darren Waller did not practice with his knee injury. I don't think that any of those are injuries that concern me as far as the Raiders are concerned. I fully expect all of them to be out there this week. Jimmy Garoppolo was limited during practice with a calf. Trey Lance did not practice with a knee. Seems like they're trending towards Jimmy being the starter for San Francisco this week. So, big sad if you were a Trey Lance believer, but this is probably good for the offensive weapons in San Francisco. Jimmy seems to be a little more consistent with getting them the ball. So, good news if you have Debo. Probably good news if you have Brandon Ayuk. We can break that down more when we get to this matchup. Julio Jones did not practice with a hamstring, and AJ Brown. Antonio Brown is further down the list. AJ Brown did not practice with an illness. Obviously, this is the same non-COVID illness that he just played with on Monday, so he should be fine. Do you guys expect Julio? Obviously, this is just based on earlier in the week practice reports. Julio still has time to actually get out there on the field, but based on what we know about Julio and his hamstrings, do you guys expect Julio to get out there this week?
I mean, we've seen Julio do this before where, first practice of the week he will miss, and sometimes even the second practice, but he will get out there on Friday. I'm not super worried at the moment. We'll see what tomorrow brings, or I guess at this point today. But
to be clear about which day I'm referring to here, I did not see a update listed for if Julio was on the practice field today, so this update is referring to his status for Wednesday practice.
Yes.
Oh wait, it is Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
My brain is all backed up here. Yeah. So
Anyways, my overall
the computer says 10:21 because we're shooting this after midnight, and it was like, where's the Thursday one? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
My overall point being, if he gets out, if he's limited today being Thursday, I'm less concerned. But at the moment, I'm not really that concerned.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think so far, if it's just this illness, I think you should be able to see the field.
Well, no,
it's
it's a hamstring for Julio.
The
illness is for AJ. I fully
Yeah.
expect AJ Brown to be out there
Yeah.
unless he gets more sick.
Yeah, for Julio, I do expect him out there. Like Frankie was saying, he's a vet. Sometimes they just take time. So I would like to see him log a limited practice to have this confidence. So if he doesn't log a practice by the time Sunday rolls around, it's definitely something I'm heavily monitoring.
Okay. Travis Kelce was limited during practice with a neck injury, and Tyreek Hill did not practice with a quad. I'm not super, not super worried about Kelce. I am somewhat worried about Tyreek Hill. He came out of this past game with this quad injury, was able to get back on the field, but if it's bad enough to get you to leave the game, and obviously a person who's as powerful a runner as Hill is, you kind of need your legs to be fully functioning. I could see him missing a week if the quad doesn't respond well in practice and he's just feeling sore. The adrenaline wears off and suddenly he's realizing, man, my quad fucking hurts. I could see this injury potentially costing him a week. Are you guys prioritizing Mecole Hardman if this happens, or are you just kind of fading everyone not named Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes?
Um, Go ahead.
I'll say I'm wrong. Like if
And we can dig into this more when we get to this matchup, but
if Hardman doesn't
just surface level.
if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, or I guess yeah, it's pretty much basically if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, I'm comfortable with having Mecole Hardman as a flex because, I mean, granted the Chiefs have looked a little bit out of sorts to say the very least, but they are still a very high touchdown upside team, and we don't necessarily know where those touchdowns are going to go, but they're basically the discount Buffalo Bills.
Sure.
There are pieces that you want and pieces that can get touchdowns. Mecole Hardman is one of those pieces. I wouldn't put my money on Denard Robinson or, whoever else is there, but
Byron Pringle.
Yeah, I would say Hardman is not a super high upside flex option, but he is definitely if he gets a touchdown, I'm happy with it.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I was to say, just as far as Tyreek Hill, I'll kind of comment about the other starts here in the when we get to the matchup. But as far as Tyreek Hill himself, honestly, I do think he's going to play in this one. The Chiefs need to start manufacturing wins and start getting back in the right side of this, the win column here. They're having a real rough start, so I could see them trying to push him through this. Which, he's still young enough, so I think he should be able to play through it. But
he has missed time before because of soft tissue injuries too. So
yes, but like I said, those other times I think the Chiefs were looking at where they didn't need him, whereas technically they shouldn't need him against the Titans, but they can't really afford losses at this point.
Fair. Brandon Cooks did not practice with a non-injury, so that's a non-factor for me unless it continues into the weekend and ends up being a Calvin Ridley situation. Ricky Seals-Jones, who I think a lot of people are relying on this week with all of the buys and injuries and whatnot, is down with a quad injury, did not practice. Another one that you're going to have to monitor as the week goes on because quads can linger and they can take you out of the game come weekend time. Curtis Samuel did not practice with a groin. He is not expected to play. Terry McLaurin did not practice with a hamstring. At this time, I do still expect him to be out there, so I'm not particularly worried about that yet. And then Antonio Gibson was a DNP with those nasty shin splints that he had. He did, miss a significant amount of time this past week. Was just in and out of the game constantly. Didn't look like he could handle the pain anymore. Got an MRI earlier this week. I haven't heard any results from that yet, so I guess maybe knock on wood that they're fine. But I've been looking into this Antonio Gibson situation a little bit more, given the severity of the shin splints. It sounds like, and the more I hear about this, the more I'm worried that he might just have to get shut down for the season at some point, given the point in the season at which we are. There are reports out there that something like this typically could take up to 6 weeks to heal, and if he keeps putting pressure on it the way that he has been, he could end up just snapping his shin.
Yeah, as we were talking about,
because he doesn't. I guess it's less of shin splints and more of a stress fracture.
Yeah, and as we were talking about, this is very similar to Conor McGregor when he snapped his leg in half. So this could be very catastrophic because usually what happens is you snap that shin in half. You don't know it's snapped in half. And you go to put pressure on it, and you figure he's going to be doing that mid-cut, mid-run, and that's going to be a lot worse than Conor McGregor, who just stepped back casually on the foot, and that could cause a lot more damage. So hopefully he sits and does let this rest. But yes, I think this is terrible news for fantasy managers that are rostering him. I would try and get him off my team as fast as I can, but I don't know what you're going to be able to get.
So obviously with this sort of update about the Gibson situation, and a lot of this update is, from what I've seen, just speculation from doctors who work on athletes. So they have a point of reference to approach this from. But let's say that Antonio Gibson does sit for 3 weeks and just sees if 3 weeks of bed rest uh, can can get his shin to a spot where he can at least finish out the season on it. Are you guys interested in JD McKissick, or do you think that it's sort of a diminishing returns with McKissick, where the more work he gets, the less good he is?
Honestly, I think it's gonna help him in the passing game. I think he does take a tick up, but he doesn't take a huge bounce up in my eye. It's not like he's stepping in as the 3 down back. I fully expect him to just plug in some lesser back there to take over the Gibson role, and McKissick just has an expanded role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I have the. Go ahead, Frankie. I'm just looking up the name of.
Oh no, I was
Gibson's
agreeing with.
backup.
I was just agreeing with Vitali's sentiment that I don't think McKissick is going to be like the guy in town. I think he's just going to be, he'll probably get more work in the passing game, but I don't think he's going to be the workhorse.
Yeah, it's Jarrett Patterson. That's what it is. From I don't know much. I don't know much about him. I'd have to do some more digging if I was going to really make an assessment on if he was going to be useful for them or not. Should Antonio Gibson go down? I know he's a rookie without much work this season, so it's kind of just a
Yeah,
toss up.
I was going to say, to be honest, I don't know anything about him. So
that's because he has 9 carries in the season.
Yeah, he's on the smaller side too, so ideally he's more of the passing style back. But who knows? Yeah. Like I said, there's not much out there about this guy, so I fully expect if Gibson goes down, they'll probably go sign some veteran.
They trade for Marlon Mack.
I mean, I wouldn't hate it if you're going to lose Gibson. Marlon Mack is just the kind of guy you're going to need to.
I mean, I would, because Achilles injury, but
yeah.
Chase Edmonds was limited in practice today with a shoulder. DeAndre Hopkins also was a non-injury DNP. So, once again, only worried if it keeps happening. DeAndre Swift was limited during practice with a groin injury. Stop me if you've heard that before. TJ Hawkinson was a DNP with that knee. Tom Brady was able to fully practice with his thumb injury. Gronk was still not practicing with his ribs, which I think is a little worrisome for Gronk at this point, that he's missed this many weeks with that rib injury. Hopefully he can get back on the field soon, with the dire state of tight end at the moment. Antonio Brown was a DNP with his ankle. I don't expect that to actually cost him any time. It sounds like that's just a day of rest, and he's going to get back out onto the practice field later this week. Darnell Mooney was limited with a groin. Allen Robinson was a DNP with his ankle. Jumping over to the Ravens, a couple of guys that people might have been hoping were going to get out there for this bye week hell that we're in. Sammy Watkins isn't practicing, and Latavius Murray with that rolled ankle isn't practicing. Sammy Watkins, I think, is a little bit easier to get around because wide receivers are easier to find. You probably have more depth at that position anyway. Let's say you didn't, actually, Frankie, you being a Latavius Murray manager in a couple leagues, and I know at least in one of them you didn't get Devonta Freeman. How are you sort of approaching the Latavius Murray situation, given that he is only day to day, but he easily could miss a week or be limited with that ankle? Are you trusting Latavius Murray if he's out there, and are you trying to get Devonta Freeman in case he's not, or are you just picking up Lev Bell and hope for the best?
So here's my thing. I was actually thinking about this on the way home, and for me, Latavius Murray didn't practice today. I think it's, it could be one of those, early week practices where we're just seeing, the guys who are injured, like Sammy Watkins, like all those other guys, Julio, whoever, get some rest. I thought about it a little bit more. I was like, okay, we go into tomorrow. If he's still not playing tomorrow, I mean, right now I have him in my flex, so I can just drop pieces and move things around as I need to. But so say I'm on the, say I'm on a running back. The Ravens, to me, I think, other than Latavius Murray, while in the past they have been a high rushing volume team, if you just go and look, so let me just pull it up so I can.
Devonta Freeman did have a fairly nice outing last week. I believe it was 9 carries for 47 yards. Like he looked okay for a guy who we thought was kind of washed.
I don't know. For me, Okay, so if Latavius Murray's healthy and ready to go, he's 100% a lock for me. Because
Sure.
the way I look at this Ravens backfield, none of them are getting a super large snap volume when they're all healthy. So the thing here is, if Latavius Murray plays, I'm playing Latavius Murray because he's going to be the guy who's getting those goal line carries. That's pretty much how I've seen it shake out through the season. If he doesn't play, I really don't think I want to, roll the dice and try and guess who's going to get the touchdown here. I mean, it's probably going to be Devonta Freeman. I don't think it's going to be Le'Veon Bell. But if I have to pick one of them, it's going to be Freeman. But if you didn't get Freeman, I gotta go look elsewhere for just a flex fill in.
Okay. Jumping over to the Thursday game, David Njoku is a full participant in practice. He is off the injury report, so he will be out there this week for the Browns, which is good because everyone else isn't. Baker Mayfield is not playing. He has a shoulder injury and is ceding the start this week to Case Keenum. Odell Beckham was a DNP and is likely going to be considered a game time decision. Nick Chubb is officially ruled out for this game after missing practice today, and Kareem Hunt is obviously on the IR. Jarvis Landry isn't back out there yet, etc., etc. They're missing their entire offensive line, a whole handful of defensive players. The Browns are in rough shape right now. Hopefully, the long rest after this game will give them some time to get back into the swing of things. But yeah, it's going to be a scary Thursday night game, I think, this week as far as what we're actually getting for fantasy performance. And then on the Broncos side of the ball, Jerry Jeudy is still just a question mark as to if he's actually going to give it a go this week or not.
I don't think he might not even be back.
I don't expect him out there, but
I honestly don't expect him back next week either. I didn't expect him all because this game was on a Thursday, and from what I've been seeing, they want to get him back out there, but next week, I think even is still being touted as like 50-50. Maybe he gets out there, maybe he doesn't.
Sure. All right. Well, that's all the news that I had. Did you guys? Oh, I'm sorry. There's one other major news item that we need to bring up. It's not injury related.
The biggest one, I would say.
Yeah. I assume you guys know what I'm talking about here. Deshaun Watson trade rumors have once again cropped up. They appeared. I saw them mid-afternoon today, around like 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Sounds like there's a lot of steam behind Deshaun Watson going to the Dolphins. I saw a sleeper report that was talking more in depth about leaked details of the potential trade. It sounds like if it happens, it's probably going to be a three-way trade that's going to send Tua to Washington. Send Tua to Washington, send Deshaun to Miami, and send who knows what to Texas. But
probably picks.
Yeah, probably picks and players, like something like that.
Yeah.
But how are you guys reading the situation? Because obviously, after these reports came out, probably about an hour and a half after these reports came out, there was another sleeper report that said this is all false. None of this is true. We would never blah 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 blah. Standard deflect. Try and put the fire out. How are you guys reading the situation? Do you got what level of confidence do you have in this move actually happening, or is this just posturing by the Texans to try and draw actual interest?
I mean, I think at the very least, if I have a bench spot that I can afford to use, I'm picking up Deshaun Watson wherever I can.
I did that a bunch.
But
yeah, honestly, go ahead, Frankie.
I would say other than that, I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, we've roughly talked about this a couple times during the season. Like, how do we? Like every time the Deshaun Watson thing has come up, what do we think about Miami's weapons? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I'm not just gonna rattle off the same song and dance. I mean, I think that their offense gets better, but until we actually see anything happen, I mean, there's not really much to do.
Sure.
I honestly think that the second report is just blowing smoke as a team would. With the whole, there's a big trade on the horizon. Is it going to happen? Just trying to, stamp it out while they figure out the details. But I do think there is some fire to this smoke here, just because it makes a lot of sense for the two teams receiving quarterbacks in this one. Miami wants to become a Super Bowl contender, and Washington needs something. And we've heard that this next quarterback class is not great as far as rookies go, so they're not going to be looking to that avenue. And you could do a lot worse than Tua, and I think he's at least a placeholder for them to get to another better rookie quarterback class if he doesn't work out, or if he ends up working out, they look smart because they're probably throwing a first in here. But I think
Yeah,
this makes the
their
most
first
sense
or second,
where,
kicking it over to
yeah,
Miami.
I
because
don't.
I think this is the best way for Miami to, they don't obviously didn't want to pay that preseason price of, what was it, 3 firsts or something like that,
I
four
think it was like
firsts.
3 firsts and 2 seconds,
Yeah.
if I recall.
So the easier way to get that is to bring in a second team that does have good draft capital and be like, listen, we're not going to give you the full price. They'll give you some of it. We'll send Tua up to them. You don't really want Tua back it because you're not ready to support Tua, which I think is as bad as Houston's been. I think that's the best thing they're doing is not trying to grab a rookie right now who they're just going to run into the ground,
Yeah.
I think
or
that
young quarterback, I should say.
I mean, Tua's functionally a rookie.
I just don't really understand the whole like deflecting thing. I guess because
It's just
I was gonna say Miami's always
it's PR.
But Miami's always been really the only team that can afford Watson. Like, I mean, there have been murmurings of like New England, whoever, Carolina, blah blah blah. But both of those teams were never going to pay that price. It was always going to be Miami or bust for Watson,
Well,
in my opinion, anyways.
I was saying, think about if you're Tua. Like, obviously, Deshaun wants to come over here, but Tua, you're fine. You're trying to talk to your coach. Like, do you actually believe in me? Like, do you care if I'm on this team? Should I bother trying?
I mean, I can tell you they don't because just look at last season. They weren't letting Tua like they were taking Tua out of games where he would have gotten valuable experience playing in the fourth quarter, and they were just like, no, we're gonna go out and try and win this game without you. So they clearly don't want Tua to be the guy, but they're just not telling Tua that. And I mean, I think if I'm Tua, I know that. So I'm not even sure if I want to be in Miami anymore.
Yeah, to me, that's how I look at this situation. Is I believe just because of how often this specific rumor has cropped up that this is more real than not real. It wouldn't keep popping up if there wasn't some kernel of truth here.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about the negative PR hit that it would be, but it's a worse negative PR hit for football teams to be a losing team when you're supposed to be a winning team. This is a coaching staff that's looking like it could be fighting for its job pretty soon because they're underperforming heavily. Brian Flores wants to stay the coach there. I don't even know who their general manager is. I assume he wants to keep his job too. So like this is a coaching staff and a front office that are just fighting to stay above the surface right now, trying to find any edge they can. If that edge is bringing in a top 5 quarterback and Deshaun Watson, who has some personal allegations that need to get sorted out and potentially cost them in the future, fine. But I think it would help them in the short term. That's why I think that they're looking into this because I agree they clearly don't believe in Tua. As to why they would put out a denial, it's simple. If the trade falls through, they want to be able to say, "See, we weren't trying to move you." Whereas if they come out and admit it, then everyone and their mother knows they actually were trying to go for Deshaun Watson, and then they also get a negative PR hit despite not actually getting Deshaun. So it gives them plausible deniability.
Yeah,
that's how I see that at least. But I'd be excited if this happens from a football perspective. Obviously, I'm not going to make any judgments on Deshaun Watson's personal life until it gets decided in the courts. But as far as football goes, he instantly upgrades that Miami offense. I think, he has that instant connection with Will Fuller when he comes back. I think he makes Jalen Waddle better. I think he makes Gesicki better. And honestly, Tua going to Washington is probably an upgrade over Heineke. So,
yeah,
it's good for all options involved.
I think it's a smart trade, and that's why I think it might happen.
Yeah, the reports on it were that it's likely going to happen before the trade deadline occurs. So if you have the chance to go out there and speculative add any of these guys, you're really only holding on to them for a week or two, and then if it doesn't happen, you can just cut them free again. All right. Well, I think that's all the news that we had to go over today. Did you guys have anything that I didn't mention that you want to bring up?
No, but I think we have a slate to go
just one little thing to bring up just for people to be aware of is Teddy Bridgewater did pop up on the injury report with a questionable for week 7 with a foot. So I think as if to make this matchup even worse on Thursday or today, if you're watching this, he's questionable. I think he's going to play, but how
So we
much?
could
How
have
limited is
Case
he?
Keenum versus Drew Lock.
Yep.
That is not a
Yay!
sentence I wanted to
Gross.
hear.
It is
Start
gross.
your defenses. All right, let's dive into this slate here. Our first matchup on the board, we have the Denver Broncos at 2.5-point dogs going into Cleveland to play against the Cleveland Browns,
Led by
or
Case
I
Keenum.
guess the Cleveland Browns backup squad at this point, pretty much.
Yeah.
These aren't really the Cleveland Browns, so I don't know what to think of this. I mean, obviously, I think the best start in this game is the Broncos defense.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
is there any other target in this game we're really excited to start?
I mean, I'll start the obvious Noah Fant, but if he plays,
Not
'cause
well,
I know he
no,
was
but
banged up
not
too.
I'll start. Like, is there anyone else that you guys actually think is a good start in this game, and not just like, I guess I'm rolling them out there because they exist?
Oh, like a smash start? No.
Yeah, like the Broncos defense is a smash start in this one. I think with the entire Cleveland team being dead. But like, is there anyone else you guys are really looking to get on the field in a 41-point total?
Yeah, there's not really many offensive weapons here that I'm super jazzed about, and it's something we did talk about. Honestly, as much as I do like the Denver defense in this game, I do think there's a possibility for them to be a bit of a trap this week, just because low total. If the Browns just kind of pack it in early and just kind of run the clock out with Dearness Johnson, we could just see a low total, very conservative football, which we know defenses that pay off and pay big for their managers. They're getting turnovers, they're getting sacks, they're getting so you might see some sacks, but I could see this being a very low turnover game and just a lot of punts.
I will also say, because I'm pulling the weather up on my screen here. Looks like they are expecting 24-mile-an-hour winds in this game.
Going which direction?
West.
I don't know which way the
I don't
stadium
know.
faces.
That's
So
Yeah,
totally
I was
Steven
wondering why
Orchard.
you're asking that. Because like, there's no way you know
I-
which
I was-
direction
I-
the stadium faces.
I could, but anyways. But no, I mean, I like Broncos wide receivers less, but we talked about this a little bit on the waiver show. They've been throwing the ball a lot, and the Broncos are traditionally known as a run team, and Tim Patrick's had a couple of fine weeks. Cortland Sutton's actually looked good lately, so I mean, as far as like guys who I'm like comfortable starting, I mean, I'm comfortable starting those three for the most part for the Broncos. I mean, the run game I got to get sold on a little bit more. We've seen Melvin Gordon.
I mean, if you have Melvin or Javante, you're starting them because they're running backs.
You're not starting them in your flex though, because you don't start flex players on Thursday.
Correct. But you are probably, regardless of your feelings on them, forced to start them.
Other side of the ball, I mean, what are we feeling? Going into.
I mean,
that
I'll
good
start.
defense.
I'll begrudgingly start Dearness Johnson. Once again, likely because I have no other choice. I think David Njoku is probably a worthy start in this game. He's had one big offensive outpouring so far this season. Case Keenum has to throw to someone, and he's probably their most talented pass catcher at this point.
And then
I don't know. Like it's just all desperation plays on the Cleveland side of the ball. I feel like.
yeah, I'm kind of in that same vein of thought.
Yeah. Like there's guys that might step up that you could have gotten off the waiver wire, but honestly, starting them in a Thursday game with high wins against a good defense, like all this just spells bad production. So I'm trying to
Like
not.
this could be a game where the Browns score 0 points.
Yeah, I won't be surprised.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump to the next game on the slate here, which is going to be another game where a team could score 0 points. The New York Jets are coming to Foxborough. The total in this one is 43 points. The Patriots are 7-point home favorites, which I'm not entirely surprised about, given their strong showing last week against the Cowboys. I don't really see the Jets having any sort of a chance in this game. They already got smoked once this season. Now they have to come into Foxborough and try and not get smoked again. Uh, the, are there any Jets that you guys are really looking at starting this week? For me, especially based on last game, it's bench all Jets.
Yeah, it's just as we said the last time they played the Jets, Bill just has a way with absolutely destroying rookie and just young quarterbacks. So
Yeah.
Zach Wilson's already not looking great. The Jets are not looking great as a team, and Bill eats this team and these young quarterbacks alive. This is going to be rough for the Jets, and I think the Patriots just be able to get up and then just cruise out of this game. So it might not be a high-scoring affair. So the Patriots' offense might not be great, but I think the running game should be.
Yeah.
Patriots side of the ball, Damian Williams, Damian Harris is a smash start in this one. Hunter Henry is looking like he's emerging as a reliable fantasy option at the tight end position. I think you can still comfortably start Jacoby Myers as long as you don't expect him to get a touchdown, because that man is cursed and he will never get a touchdown. What are you guys doing about with Ramondre Stevenson here? I think, given that the Patriots are expected to win handily in this one, and that we've seen before with this team that there are plenty of carries to go around, even if Damian Harris gets 18 to 20. Are you guys comfortable rolling in a bad week for flex options and running back options? Are you guys comfortable rolling out Ramondre Stevenson as just an independent flex fill-in,
I mean, I'm not
kind of
comfortable
like a
with.
Jamal Williams of yesteryear?
I mean, I'm not comfortable with it. Um, I
I'm
mean,
just gonna go out and say no
I
for
think
myself.
he's very. I mean, I think touchdown dependent, especially how Harris has looked. And I mean, yeah, you're kind of searching for that touchdown when you put a low end flex in there. But I think that there are other guys that I would rather toss in that flex spot and be a little bit more comfortable with.
Such as?
As far as I mean, honestly, any of the wide receiving options that we listed in the first game, yeah, despite the total and despite the defenses. Tim Patrick's out there, Mecole Hardman, who we talked about in the news, if he's out there, just to name two right off the rip. As far as other people, if Dearness Johnson's still out there, I would feel more comfortable starting him, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I can probably look and find more, but I mean,
No, I'm just trying to
he's
get a temperature check on
he's
where
not
you.
a. Well, just look at Harris's production, and they had to keep. I mean, granted, last game they had to keep try and keep up with Dallas, but I don't really see Stevenson as a guy who. It kind of reminds me a little bit of. I'm trying to.
Here, I'll step
Yeah.
in here because I just to make my case for Stevenson, because his usage is on the lower side, yes, but I think that you can, at least on a week like this, start him as a flex option, because it seems like he's starting to slot in as the James White replacement in this offense. He did get 3 targets and haul all of them in last week for 39 yards. Like, he's getting targets not just close to the line of scrimmage, but he's getting targeted downfield as well. He's also getting some usage in the running game, enough to at least provide some ancillary value there. And I think mixing that all in, you can at least comfortably expect, you know, 6-7 points out of him. And then if he finds pay dirt, that's just kind of gravy on top of there. But I think that's kind of where his value comes from, especially in a game like this where the game script should favor a heavy rushing attack.
So, just to kind of give my counterpoint and the reason why I'm a no for him, just because when I'm looking for somebody, I'm going to start in my flex. What I'm looking for here is I'm ideally at this point, because we have 6 weeks of tape, I want to see a player. I want to be able to really see what their usage is. Right now, he's in the 30s as far as his snap count, the low 30s. He could see an uptick, and if they keep using him, but you're right, he's a hard gamble. I could see him. I can see myself being wrong with him just because how bad the Jets are. He could easily punch one in. They already talked about him having LeGarrette Blount-esque skills, and he's clearly being used in the passing game. So I can be wrong here, but there's not enough tape here where when I'm trying to scrounge together somebody in my flex, I probably would go with just a guy who's going to eat the ball a lot, maybe in a down matchup like a Mark Ingram, or go for like a Hunter Renfro, where I'm really capping my ceiling, but I know that there is a use for this player where we could just see Ramondre Stevenson, you know, get a couple carries, a couple catches, and he ends up with 3 or 4 points. And like I don't think that's enough. I'm shooting a little bit higher and a little bit safer with that flex.
Okay, fair enough. Jumping to a slightly better game on the next one on the docket. 48.5 point total. The Washington football team is heading up to Lambeau to face the Green Bay Packers, who are 7.5 point home favorites in this game. Looks like the weather should be a little chilly, but overall pretty nice. I do like the total in this game as far as relying on some of the pass catching options. Obviously, the Washington football team is not very good at defending the pass, so I think that the Packers make some intriguing bye-week streaming options this week. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams are all locked in your lineup forever until they die. What are you guys considering on the obviously we know that the Packers are you are kind of just plugging someone in and hoping they get a touchdown, but are you guys looking at an Alan Lazard or a Randall Cobb or Robert Tonyan this week in what should be a pretty easy matchup for these pass catchers?
I would throw Tunyon and Lazard in there as far as like my two. Tunyon, I mean, he hasn't looked like the Tunyon of last year, but there's always that potential in an Aaron Rodgers led offense. I mean, I'm not going to say that anybody ain't getting a touchdown, because I mean, just like the Bills and the Chiefs, they throw the ball a lot. They do my favorite thing, which is throwing the ball on the one. Mm-hmm. And Tunyon's always that goal line threat. As far as Alan Lazard, I mean, I like his snap share a lot. I mean, he's in the high 80s, and I mean, granted, he's not getting a super lot of targets, but in a game where
that's because Devontae Adams has been getting every single one of them.
Yeah. But for me, with Lazard, I think it's the touchdown. You're searching for a touchdown with him, but he also has a lot of snap share. So, I'm playing off of that. That's my reason for starting Lazard over, Randall Cobb or anybody else.
Vitaly, what about you?
Yeah, for me, both Lazard and Tunyon are a little bit they're a little bit above Ramondre Stevenson, where I'm comfortable starting them. They are just 100% boom or bust plays this week. You're either with Tunyon, you're getting 2 points, or you're getting like 24 points because you got 2 touchdowns. Or you're going to see something like with Lazard. I have a little bit more faith in him just because Washington's so banged up and been playing so poorly this year. I could see them kind of pacing down their starters and almost using this as an off game for them and leaning on Lazard a little bit more. The Washington defense is a shell of itself, and it can be very easily thrown on. So I very much expect Lazard to have just an uptick in his receptions and targets this game, so making him a viable start.
Washington side of the ball. Are we trusting Taylor Heineke as a streamer this week? And what the hell are we doing with all of Washington's various skill position players?
Well,
no on Heineke.
Yes, that. Ricky Seals-Jones is dealing with that quad, so you might not even have him this week. If you do,
you're starting him.
He's got like a 90-something% snap share through 3 games, 2 of games of which are 100. So you're definitely starting Ricky Seals-Jones if he's in there.
Okay. What about let's pretend Antonio Gibson gets out there this week. Obviously the expectations aren't super high after what we saw last week. Are you guys even starting Antonio Gibson this week if he's healthy with how he looked last week? Or are you benching him for one of these guys you might have grabbed off the waiver wire this week or last week, like a Khalil Herbert or a Dearness Johnson?
Oh, I'll definitely bench for Herbert. Like, Herbert looked real good out there.
Keep in mind, Khalil Herbert gets Tampa Bay this week.
Khalil Herbert also doesn't have shins that are about to explode, to my knowledge.
So, for me, you have to start Gibson only because of the week and how it is. There's such a lack of people out there. If you have both Gibson and Herbert, you're starting both of them, because you're going to be hard pressed to convince me that you have a RB2 and a flex that you're going to start over both of these guys. Like, yes, you might have an elite running back going this week, and Aaron Jones, Swift, something like that.
Most people are in dire straits this week.
Exactly. And Gibson could have been your first running back if you went wide receiver in the first round. So for me, I can't get cute this week. I'm starting Gibson and just hoping he holds together and gives me, a week like he started. Give me 8 points, give me 9 points, get me through this week. Just put something on the board because he's good enough, he's explosive enough that if his shin is good to go, the doctors are clearing him to play, that he could at least get you something that I would say is better than a flex play. He is a very shaky RB2 though.
Okay. Kansas City Chiefs and Tennessee Titans are the next game on the list here in a massive total of 58 for this one. Kansas City Chiefs are 5.5-point road favorites. I'm actually kind of surprised with how high that total is, given how banged up these two offenses are. I mean, maybe they just expect Derrick Henry to score 28 points on his own again, but
I mean, the Chiefs haven't
Yeah.
been looking like they can stop the run that much.
I mean, the Chiefs haven't looked like they can stop anything.
Yeah.
But
So to me, honestly, as surprising as it is with, a game with this many fantasy options in it, I don't think there's much to discuss here.
there isn't. I was basically just gonna say, if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, you start Mecole Hardman. That's really the only, spicy thing here. Everything else is pretty
Actually,
much
so let me ask you this then. Let's assume Tyreek Hill does play. Are you still flexing McCole Hardman?
I would flex him over Ramondre Stevenson.
I'm comfortable flexing him purely because he's been seeing more work. Tyreek Hill's not going to be uninjured for this game, and that could just mean more targets going his way. And we know that Mecole Hardman's a burner. He could get 2 balls in this game and take both of them to the house. Like, we just know he has that kind of speed.
Sure. All right. Who do we got next here? Bringing the total back down to normal high totals. The Cincinnati Bengals are heading to Baltimore to face the Ravens. Ravens are 6.5-point home favorites in this game. The Bengals side of the ball is going to be pretty linear as far as what we're looking at. I think Burrow's a fine flex starter, or not flex starter, streamer this week. Are you guys both in that camp? Do you trust Burrow against the Ravens?
Well, let me put it this way: the Ravens. I mean, granted, the Chargers looked a little bit out of sorts last week, but the Ravens have looked better, and I'm probably fine. Again, we're in bye week hell. If I need a quarterback, I'm fine throwing him out there. I think his ceiling's kind of what you expect from a bye week streamer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not super like, oh yeah, go get him because he's going to throw for 4 touchdowns and 400 yards.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, if you watched the episode over on Trash Talk Sports, I actually brought up Burrow as my sit candidate. Now, I don't hate Burrow this week. There's definitely quarterbacks I'd start him over. I just mainly brought him up as somebody that people would be looking at, as he's been scoring 20 points basically just over and over and over again. But he is a turnover prone, and he is really relying on these touchdowns to keep that 20-point total. I could see this as one where the Ravens defense can pretty much make him turn it over and contain him. They have really been relying on that long ball. Like I said, we're already talking about how Jamar Chase is a very scary player to keep on your team because of how he's been just making so much out of so little. I think Burrow's the same way, where if we see a bad Chase week, I think we could also see a bad Burrow week, and I could see it coming this week.
Okay. Ravens side of the ball, Lamar Jackson is obviously always an auto start. Hollywood Brown has looked good enough to this point that I think he deserves to always be in your lineup, even with the coming of Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman, honestly, is actually probably one of the ones I'm most curious to what you guys are doing with here. He didn't get a ton of work last week, but the work he got was important. He was their go-to guy when they had to go and get a first down.
I'm rolling him out there 100%.
Okay, so you're trusting Rashad Bateman?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get a lot of work last week, but you also have to remember that he's coming back from an injury. And
I mean, the team did say they were going to work him back in slowly.
That was the biggest thing that my non-concern was that he's coming back from an injury. They said they were already going to work him in slow, so I didn't expect him to get a ton of work anyways. And clearly Lamar trusts him on third down, and I mean, that's just a really good sign in general. And they're building that rapport. I think he's gonna kind of move his way up to he's probably not gonna be Hollywood, but I think he's gonna be a very reliable receiver to have, as we've seen this Ravens offense. I mean, we talked about this before a couple of shows ago. they're turning from a rushing offense into a passing offense. And Lamar is getting better at being a passer in general. And he's looked good. I mean, granted, he still has the rushing upside, but he has looked like he is doing what we've wanted him to do, which is be a better passing quarterback.
Yeah. For me, Bateman, if we were talking about any other week, he is a stash for me. He's definitely something you should have in your team, but I want to see more out of this offense. I want to see more how he works into it. But with this week being this week and Sammy Watkins trending towards not playing this week, he is definitely someone you're going to probably start, and I think he should be. Like I said, he's not a high upside guy. I don't see him getting enough targets in this game to really boom, but he could bring one of the house and really pay off for you. The Ravens are starting to throw a lot more, but we have seen that there's just some weeks where we see a little bit more of the classic Ravens where Lamar, like last week, he would drop back down, only 19 completions. And, before the two boom weeks, 18 completions, 16 completions. So they do have the ability to revert back to the classic Ravens style. And I could see this one, if the Ravens get up early, they will revert, and you'll see a lot of running to just kind of end this game.
Sure. Ravens running backs. Is there someone you guys particularly trust if Latavius Murray isn't out? For me, I think I trust Devonta Freeman, but
I've already said if it's picking one of them, it's Devonta Freeman.
okay.
So just with how I've seen waiver wires looking right now, and starts for that flex spot are pretty bad. Honestly, if Latavius Murray doesn't go, I am starting Le'Veon Bell because we did see against the Chargers, he did get 8 carries, and he is still Le'Veon Bell. He knows how to play the position well. I think he could just carve out enough work that he is valuable enough as a flex starter.
Okay. Carolina Panthers are going to visit the New York Giants in a pretty low total, 42.5 points in this one. Giants are expected to be 3-point home dogs, which seems low given the Giants have no one. Sterling Shepard is probably going to be their only healthy receiver in this game. Evan Ingram should be out there, but I mean they're missing Kadarius, or likely missing Kadarius Toney, missing Kenny Galladay, missing Darius Slayton, missing Saquon Barkley. Like
Not great.
I don't really see the Giants' path to points in this game. I'm leaving Danny Dimes on the bench. I'm fine running Sterling Shepard or Evan Ingram out there if I have to. Just because from a volume perspective, they should see some looks in this game, but this is gonna be one where you don't want to watch the game, or at least you don't want to watch the Giants snaps. Are you guys with me there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm starting Sterling Shepard just because of the amount of targets he could get, but
Yeah.
this is going to be an ugly game.
Carolina side of the ball, I think Sam Darnold makes for an intriguing quarterback start this week. Obviously, he hasn't been that good without Christian McCaffrey out there, but the Giants are also pretty bad on defense. Are you guys comfortable flexing Sam Darnold this week, or is he a sit until he gets Christian McCaffrey back for you guys?
I am personally starting Sam Donald this week, so I am hoping for a Dallas Cowboys Sam Darnold, where he rushes for 2 touchdowns, maybe throws for 2, and has
Sure.
a couple hundred
See
yards.
if he's just the NFC East killer.
Yeah, well, I mean, they played the Eagles and they didn't look that great, but yeah, the Eagles defense, I mean, has their moments.
Sure.
The Giants, not so much this year.
So for me, I do agree this is an intriguing one where I could see Darnold come back just because the Giants are that bad. But also, I feel like the Giants are being a little bit underappreciated. We know how good they can be as a defense, especially against the pass. It's one of their strong suits, but people that look up the quality of opponent they are right now, they're considered a good matchup for quarterbacks. But when you look back at their schedule, it kind of makes sense why, because their last opponents were the Rams, Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta, Washington, Denver. Like that's been their schedule. Pretty solid passing attacks throughout there, especially with their last two being the Rams and Dallas. Like those are teams that are just going to hang points on you whether you want them or not. So I could see this Giants team slowing down Darnold enough with his, without no CMC out there, basically just DJ Moore is the only focal point of this offense. And I don't think he's enough to carry them to carry Darnold specifically to a real quality start. I probably would go elsewhere, but you could do worse.
Joe Burrow or Sam Darnold?
Joe Burrow.
What about you?
I think I think the higher total in that game just gives Burrow the chance for more points. I hate streaming quarterbacks and sub 43 point totals.
Yeah,
Alright.
for me, it's mainly just weapons.
All right.
Obviously, we're starting DJ Moore. This should be a smash Chuba Hubbard week, so starting Chuba Hubbard. Robbie Anderson got a bunch of targets and did nothing with them last week. Are we trusting Robbie Anderson?
Uh,
No.
if
Nope.
I you know what, if I need a flex, I will roll Robbie out there because there's no
Okay, Frankie. Robbie Anderson or Ramondre Stevenson?
Robbie Anderson.
So here, Frankie, let me try and talk you off the cliff here,
All
and
right.
maybe anyone else who's
All right.
looking at him.
Yep.
Here's his targets, because I think people are getting blinded by the targets. His last 3 games, 11, 7, 11. That's great. That could even be elite level targets. His catches, though, what he actually brought down, 5, 2, 3.
All right.
He is, I don't know if it's the quality of target or it's just his hands. 'Cause I haven't really watched a lot of the tape between his connection between him and Darnold, but he is not bringing down enough balls to justify being started. I mean, we were talking about dropping him the first 3 weeks, but then he starts getting targeted and doesn't do anything with those targets, and now he's, we got to think about that. He's back up to 67% rostered. Like, people just need to let him go. Stop looking at the shiny targets because he already showed you 3 weeks. He's not doing any of them.
All right. So, and here's my counterpoint:
Go for it.
high snap count.
Yep.
And, well, you know what? You pulled up, Robbie Anderson's numbers. Let me pull up Ramondre Stevenson's numbers real quick. Just
Well, no, but Vitali's not arguing for Ramondre Stevenson over Robbie Anderson.
no.
Vitali's just saying no to Robbie Anderson.
well, no, that was
That's
literally,
not
that was
well,
literally
that
the
was
question.
No, I'm just saying, just don't start Robbie Anderson. If you want me to give you some people to play over him, Rashad Bateman, Mecole Hardman, I'd go for a tight end. There might be a couple tight ends out there if you can
Tyler
get
Boyd?
them. Yeah, go Tyler Boyd,
Yeah,
just because
100%.
there's enough. Tyler Boyd has been struggling, but like I said, that's going to be a pace-up game because I expect the Bengals to be down.
Alan Lazard?
Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, honestly, I think Robbie Anderson is a guy that, especially if he does have a game this week, people should be jumping to try and move him for anything that is more valuable than him, because if his boost in production coincides directly with Christian McCaffrey not being there. So that to me means that once McCaffrey comes back, Robbie Anderson turns back into a pumpkin, and he's basically a pumpkin right now, but he's a pumpkin with like a nice fresh coat of paint.
And he's got a late bye, which could hurt a team that's struggling.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the final matchup on our first half of this countdown slate. The Atlanta Falcons are heading to Miami in a 47.5 point total here to face the Miami Dolphins, who are 2.5 point home dogs in this game. Dolphins are, I think, intriguing options this week for fantasy. Obviously, Tua was out there as a good quarterback streamer. I really like him as, with just the poor quality of Atlanta's defense. I think Tua should probably be considered as a top streamer of the week. Jalen Waddle should be the primary recipient of the targets in this offense. The target quality went up a lot last week when he got Tua back instead of Jacoby Brissett. So I think that's really good for Jalen Waddle, especially with Devontae Parker and Will Fuller not going to be out there again this week. Gesicki is obviously going to be a strong tight end option, given how bad tight end is. I think the only real, because obviously, like, all three of those guys, if you have them, you're probably starting them this week. I think the only real question with the Dolphins is, even in a shit week like this, are we doing anything with these running backs, or is Gaskin still riding the pine for you?
I am doing.
Because for me,
Gaskin's
Gaskin's a pine rider in this game, and I don't, because his name, like, the proven production is not there for him, and he hasn't done anything this season outside of one game. Like, I'd rather roll the dice on a Devonta Freeman or a Dearness Johnson.
Yeah, for me, it's like granted, Tua wasn't there for a little while, so their offense in general is just going to struggle. But I think that it's kind of like, it reminds me of like the Bucks rushing attack where you don't, like, they want to be a good offense. Well, the Bucks are a good offense, but the Dolphins, you don't really know what you're going to get out of them. It's almost kind of like the Patriots before where they had like one guy who would go off and then have another guy who would go off and then have another guy who would go off. But there's not that guy that's going off. It just, everyone just has terrible production, terrible, just overall output. And
Well, everyone doesn't have terrible production. That's the thing. There are plenty of players on the Dolphins who have provided at least a couple good weeks of production this season.
Oh, I'm talking about the running backs.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like you just leave the running backs on the shelf this week.
Yeah, no, I'm leaving the running backs on the shelf until somebody proves that they're gonna be a competent running back.
I don't think you're going to get that proof this season. I think Myles Gaskin might not be the running back everyone was hoping he was going to be, and it's just kind of a sort of a dead ball situation until they get a good running back in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it. He's a low end streamer for me, but I will start Gaskin just because while the Falcons don't give up a lot of points to the running back position, he has been playing more. Basically been more of a passing threat for this team. He gets, especially if you're in a half point or PPR, those catches count for something. I think he can eke out a passable week with how crappy the situation is right now. But like I said, I think there's plenty of options you could go over him with.
Would you guys do Gaskin or Ramondre Stevenson?
Gaskin.
Frankie's thinking
Gaskin.
He gets more. He gets about the same amount of carries, and he gets more targets. It's just and Falcons is terrible.
Falcons side of the ball, Calvin Ridley has to be out there, even though he's been disappointing so far this year. He's just too good to not be out there. I think Matt Ryan makes for a very attractive streaming option this week because this Miami defense is another defense that we thought was going to be good, and it's not. So Matt Ryan should be able to throw on this defense. Kyle Pitts, you're rolling him out there as tight end, even though we don't really like rookie tight ends. He's still at least getting volume on this Falcons team. That counts for a lot at the tight end position. I think, honestly, these two teams are kind of mirrors of one another in my eyes because the Falcons also have a really crappy running back position. Cordero Patterson, I don't count really as a running back. He's just he is a he's a Swiss Army knife in that back.
He's a person who's on the team who scores points.
Yeah, he could play every single position on the offense. I'm convinced. So Cordero Patterson's obviously going to be on the field and in your lineups. Are we trusting Mike Davis in this matchup?
He gets enough carries. He gets enough use that in a crappy week like this, I'm willing to roll him out there because you can see 10 carries and 3 receptions, and that's more than a lot of flex and just running backs this week that are available can say.
Man, Mike Davis,
I agree.
just looking at his points. Looking at Mike Davis's points, Mike Davis has really inherited the David Montgomery mantle. Where if you need 8 points, he'll get you 8 points. And if you need 18 points, he'll get you 8 points.
But he is no one's darling this year. Everybody is slowly becoming just off on him, and for a good reason.
Oh, I think everyone is off on him at this point.
His jersey is being burned.
Yes.
Yeah, but I do like Matt Ryan a lot this week. He throws the ball just so much.
Because the Falcons are down so much.
It's because they suck.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that'll do it for the first half of this show. Join us tomorrow as we have Mike Fontaine on again to help us break down the second half of this slate. And obviously, if you have any roster-specific questions, trades, lineups, anything like that, make sure to reach out to us on Twitter. You can see our handles all around the screen here. And if you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, so that way you can find out exactly when our new content drops. That'll do it for us today. We'll see you all tomorrow.